Alright, so this is my latest project, is replacing the bumper on my fifth wheel here. And the reason I did that was so I could add this mini split unit to it. But what I really wanted to go into was how, or the reason why they changed out this bumper. And the primary reason was, straight from the factory, they're just too weak to really support anything. So just to give everybody an idea of what I'm talking about, this is the original bumper on the bottom there. And this is the size of the tubing that I replaced it with. So I want you to take a look here. This is actually 14 gauge steel, and from a structural perspective, that's pretty dang thin. Now, if you go up here to this 3/16 square tubing, you can tell that it's quite a bit thicker and a lot more structurally substantial than the 14 gauge tubing that's right underneath it. So, you know, this is fine if you wanted to throw some, I don't know, your stinky slinky. I got down there, I need to pick that up. If you want to throw your stinky slinky in here and let it be just a holding area for that, but ain't good for much else. Now, the unfortunate part that is involved with using this square tubing is I can no longer get my sewer tubing down through there, so I'll have to think of some other solution for that. But anyway, that's a prevailing rationale. You know, looking at this, I've seen folks that would put bike racks on there or some type of generator carrier or something like that and go down the road, and just the torsional forces that are involved whenever you got something sitting that far back from the wheels of your trailer and leveraging down, when it comes down, it's going to slam down, especially if you got like a bike rack sitting back there. The things aren't tight by any stretch of the imagination, so whenever they come down, they are slamming down with much greater force than they would be if they just you know, just dropped them down on there or just were gently let down. So anyway, you're putting a lot of torsional forces on that bumper, which is going to want to twist and flex that metal, and over time it'll just either tear away or break away in some shape, form, or fashion. You wind up with bikes littered down the road if you don't lose your whole bumper entirely. So anyway, you know, how I got this thing up here was I more or less created some brackets to put this thing onto, and then I just took the square tubing and lifted it up onto the brackets and then welded it in place. You can tell it, you know, this top here, I've ground that down pretty good, and I've gone ahead and capped up this tubing here, this 2x4 rectangular tubing. Hey, say hello to the cat. If anybody wants a cat, let me know. But anyway, so this is I believe this is 2x4 channel that I got off of a you know, one of the local junkyards, and I believe it was used for some type of pallet rack material or whatever. But it was yellow when I got it. Served my purposes pretty well, and it's fairly beefy or substantial, so I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And what I did with this was, see if I can get a shot of the back here without killing myself or stepping on the cat. So anyway, you can tell that I extended it back here, tied it into the existing I-beam of the trailer, and I got some welds here, welds all along the top here, welds along this bottom, as well as I tied in some welds here onto the rectangular tubing. And then I put some 1/4 inch plate strapping down here, and this extends up underneath the bumper here. Let's see, the cat wants to be petted. But regardless, and then I put some angle iron in that section right there. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but starting right here and then on in the back here, it's just an additional gusset to give me more surface area to weld onto. and make a much stronger weld than I would get if I just tried to weld this directly onto this this channel. But the way that I did it is I more or less created this, welded this bracket, and then welded this onto the trailer on both sides, and then this 1/4 inch that I put on the bottom here, I just used that as a mounting surface for the entire bumper. I just walked up, plopped the bumper on there, and then tacked it on, and make sure it was even side to side, and then finished welding it out either way. So, if you're looking at my welds, just know I am not a professional welder. I got a little Hobart 140 handler that I used, and it goes up to 1/4 inch plate that used to weld, which, this 3/16 went through just fine. This 1/4 inch here, and then this 1/4 inch angle that I use in the back here, it tacked it on pretty well. But you know what they say, a little bit of grinder and some paint makes you a pretty good welder. I forget exactly how the saying goes, but let's just say I used that grinder and paint pretty well. But anyway, so don't go using one of these little flimsy bumpers to hold your bike racks or anything substantial on your travel trailer when you're going down the road. Now, I did craft some additional brackets for the mini split here, and those were custom fabricated, if you want to call them that. And you can tell I used a couple of angle bolts here on either side of these brackets, and this mini split is not going anywhere. I mean, I can push down on the thing, and it's pretty solid. So this, I think this is 1.5 inch square tubing. It's 1/4 inch, and drill through that. Use some 1/4 inch plate here on either side, and I don't know if you can tell in there. Use some couple angled gussets to give me, again, more surface area, more structural support to get some more metal on to make it a little more solid. And those angled gussets are on either side, so in essence, this is tacked onto this, the gussets are tacked onto that and this, and it's welded on the bottom. Of course, I had to ground that smooth to get this sitting flat, but I left the welds up here in the corners intact. A couple of drilling measurements, get the holes in there, and we're good to go. It was a little bit of a challenge to get this thing on there by myself, but just make do and get her done. So anyway, ran my tubing up in there. Still got to clean off this this butyl tape here and put some caulk around, and then finish wrapping my line set here. But all in all, fairly easy install. Took me a couple of days to get it done, and it wasn't necessarily hard. It was just time consuming. And this, I got it plugged into an extension cord here, and it's running pretty well as a temporary solution. I'll wire it into some house power here once I got it figured out, or I may just get a better plug and waterproof this a little bit and leave it just like that. Because this thing, even as big as it is, 1200 BTUs, it only draws about 10 amps, I think, when it's fully running. A little bit over 1,000 watts, I believe, is what it's rated as. I think it has here, maybe. Yeah, it's got a 15 amps max circuit, but it doesn't really say how much it's going to draw whenever it's running. Oh well. I was looking at the specs earlier. It's about, I think it's a little over 1,000 watts on heat and a little bit over 800 watts on cooling. But I know from the my little deal I got inside the camper, got one of those surge protector things. It shows me exactly how much is being drawn, and it's sitting right at 10 amps whenever it's full on. You turn it on, it's nice and warm inside. So cools down pretty well. And the only reason I got this thing is because, one, it uses less amps than that 1500 BTU air conditioner I got on the top, and the 11,000 BTU air conditioner I have in the bedroom, it just still gets too hot inside the camper. So if I wind up running this thing on the generator for a little while, or the 15K off the shore power and the 11K off the shore power, I think I'll be all right. Oh, I obviously can't because I only got a 30 amp connection. This is an older trailer, by the way. So I have not yet converted it to 50 amps, and probably won't, just because of, there's really not a whole lot of value in it, unless I just get totally bored one day and decide to take on yet another project that I don't have time for. Anyway, that's my little pseudo mini split install, as well as a caution little bumper project for putting on the trailer. Hope you guys found it useful, and I'll be doing another video shortly on my stabilizing system that I created for this fifth wheel. I think it'll be helpful to a lot of folks. Alright, any questions? Please feel free to ask.